When your resources are scarce, you have to get creative, and Caymanians throughout our history have been masters of creativity. Today, we're going to meet Papa Gerald Rankin. He has many talents, but our focus this time is on nets and hammocks.
That's all I do, just to fish. I go with my brother and my father, them go fishing with hook and line and go outside the reef there.
Papa Gerald can't say exactly when he learned to fish or make nets, but it did start when he was pretty young. Because in his day, everyone in the family had to work hard to survive.
When I was a young boy, I had to go. We used to use tap rope in them days. I had to get up all in the morning, just strand, and then get it laid, and when they carry it in the shop, they buy stuff for us to go to school, for food. They were hard days, man.
While Rope provided funds for goods like flour and sugar, the waters off his home district of East End were rich with fish.
Yeah, we used to need the fish because sometimes the weather used to be so bad you couldn't fish it in the day, so we would go get at night to get fish for the family to cook for the next day for the children thing for school.
Mr. Rankin's talent with nets was likely born because fishing in those early days involved small boats and canoes. The nets were a necessity.
So when I get 17 and 18, I used to go look turtle on the Mosquito Key. So I stay out there for 2 months. You don't see no land. 18 miles from land. 18 miles.
And as he grew older, like many other Caymanians of the time, his life became the sea. And making hammocks using some of the same knots he uses for fishing nets helped keep his hands busy on those long months at sea.
I used to be on the ship. That's when I started making the hammocks. I used to take the rope there and cut it up and pick it out and make the hammocks.
And those hammocks do provide a handy bed on ships or on land. It's a bed you can fold up in your luggage, and one that keeps you sleeping well above insects and vermin.
So you did this, to pass time on the ship?
Mm-hmm. When I get off my work, I do this to pass off time. I had 21 years with National Boat, and 12 years with a ship from Louisiana, and 12 years from another ship from Panama. Long time on the sea.
Today, Papa Gerald loves to share his skills with a whole new generation.
What's next?
And one of those students is Caitlin Elphingston, a multimedia artist who can attest to the skill, precision, and persistence this work requires.
I think it's so important to be able to pass on and be able to continue some of these skills that in a few more generations might possibly be lost. So to get started, you need a needle that looks like this, and then you need a spacer that determines how big your loops are going to be in the fish net. Now the needle is what you need to load up on with the type of yarn or string or thread that you want to use. So I'll use this one as an example. What you do is you take a little of the yarn out, put it along here, and it's quite easy. You just start looping back and forth. So you go back and forth. So you go through the back, you loop it forward, you go through the front, you loop it behind, you go to the back, you loop it in front, you go to the front, and you loop it behind. So this could take quite a while to do to get it all loaded up, because what you want to do is, you can see the thread coming up here. You want to go all the way to the top of this needle so that you have a lot of thread to work with when you're making your net or your hammock. So this is an example that has been done that I've already started to use on this net. So you can see it gets quite chunky here. So you have to make sure that this chunkiness will fit through the size of your loop. So you don't want it to be too chunky that it won't get through the hole to make the net. So once you've gone all the way up to here, then you cut it off of your thread roll or loop, and then you start the top. So here's an example. This one's nice and big to see as an example. So this is just a free-flowing loop that you have. And you first want to create the horizontal line of your net or your hammock. So that's when you start making these knots in a long strip. So this will be the horizontal, and then once you loop it all together, and then you start making the vertical side of your net. So depending on how many loops you start off with at the top determines how wide your net is going to be. So I'll show you how to make those knots, and then we can take it from there. Okay, so April, we'll need your help to hold the end. It's really important that you make it nice and taut, because if it's too loose, your knots won't be tight enough to stick. So what you want to do, I'm left-handed, which throws things in, so I'm going to work from right to left, because that's how I feel most comfortable. But if you're right-handed, you might want to flip your net over and work in this direction. Either way, they're all the same knots. So here's what you do. You take your spacer, you go underneath, and you take your needle, get some thread off, and you loop underneath. So you want to get 3 lines down. So you can see you've got 1, 2, 3. So I'm pulling it tight right here on my spacer. And this is where we want to make the knot. So to do that knot, you've got to loop this thread over your wrist, and then underneath these 2, you put your needle. So then you can see this is the piece that's going to be tightened down to create the knot. Like this. Then you've got the knot. Now we're going to go along here until we have them all loaded onto this spacer, and then we can take it off and we can see the finished row that has been formed. So you go underneath, you pull it tight against the spacer, and you can see these are the V of the loop, and you throw it. It's important to throw over your wrist so that the needle comes underneath so that it can form the knot. And then you pull down slowly and form the next knot. And then you repeat underneath the next loop, and you pull down so that that V goes towards the spacer. Throw it over your wrist, and then under the 2 to pull the knot. You pull it down straight. Again, you go underneath, grab the next loop, and you pull it down. Yeah, you can see them all lining up. Okay, so that's the last loop, and you can see all of the knots, not perfect, but you can see them all of the knots are along the top of your spacer, and you can see each row of knots like this. Those are each row that we've done. So then, this is the fun part, you take it off the spacer, and you can see your next row of lines. Then what I would do, because I prefer working in this direction, is I would flip it over and repeat the process.
Can't miss it. Let's see.
Nowadays, Mr. Rankin spends his free time traveling across the islands, teaching local children the art of crafting, fishing nets, hammocks, and more. He says times are much easier today, but it is important to remember how we got here, and he does worry about Caymanian traditions being lost to future generations.
They got to keep doing it, but they're not going to bother keep showing them to do it.